Thank you, everyone. My name is Mike Shea with the Missouri Department of Transportation. With me today, Chris Busick. He's in our Northwest District out of St. Joseph. And Phil Ruffus, everyone knows Phil. He's out of our St. Louis District. And Phil is one of our directors here at the NCPP. And today we'll talk about Missouri and how we meet these federal highway performance targets. And in 2017, as it's noted there, we began collecting additional pavement data. We use an ARAN van at MoDOT, and we actually bought a new ARAN van, and that ARAN van now is able, it always collected smoothness data, IRI data, but in keeping with some of the additional requests from Federal Highway, we are now collecting rutting data, cracking and faulting data, and so now we can also look at the structure of that pavement in a more complete way than just looking at smoothness. And then how does your pavement preservation fit within your agency's overall asset management plan? Pavement preservation, we've been looking at that for years, and I think as noted by a few of the other states, I don't think this changed a lot in Missouri. We always looked at pavement preservation, but again, it has taken a higher level of a prominent role in our DOT like it has in many others. But with financial constraints, as everyone has, we need to be judicious in how we use those dollars, and that plays a vital role in during our pavement selection process, especially in these urban districts like St. Louis and Kansas City, where you also have so many other competing features, guardrail upgrades, ADA mitigations, and things like that. So that there's a lot of needs all over the state, and this is the preservation just competes with those other needs as well. And to give you a little framework, centerline miles of roads, because I think when we talk about these performance targets from Federal Highway, we're talking about the national highway system. But again, that is the interstates and many of the U.S. Roads, but that comprises, as you see here, about 5,500 miles of roads in Missouri. Sizable amount of mileage. But we also have to take care of a total of 33,859 miles. So we have to look at the whole state, not just the NHS system. NH system is very important, carries most of the traffic, but we got a lot of those lower volume routes in Missouri. Those farm to market roads that might be in some of the other states, well, those are MoDOT roads. And I'm going to let Phil touch on some of these best practices that we address in the urban areas for pavement preservation. Many of these are some urban best practices, and I'll let Phil kind of touch on those.
We'll be talking about this more extensively tomorrow. If you have an opportunity to visit me, I'll be second in the afternoon and talk about implementing asset management plans. Mike touched it very well. We've had to do a lot of different things because realistically, we probably don't have enough funding to really truly take care of the seventh largest system. So subsequently, we've been having some issues. So what are we doing different? Well, we've introduced what we call an SPO 95, and you guys call thin lays and a few other things. That's that open graded NOVA. Well, we've kind of closed it up. We're using more of that because we hadn't had a lot of victory with the open grades. So that's a change. Mostly on all of our routes, especially in St. Louis, there really isn't anything low. 110,000, 120,000, there really isn't a lot. So when you say interstate and major, it's the same. So we're going to these SP mixes. They're usually a B mix, the Borea to Tears, that's a 100 cycle mix, fairly expensive stiff oils. Until I talked to somebody yesterday, we are beginning to require spray pavers on our mixes. There's two jobs we've actually wrote a JSP to begin using those instead of track. We've had some bitter defeats, a lot of tacking challenges, and some of our thin lays have been popping up. We have, as you've heard in both the agency meeting and the public meeting, trying to push that chip seal out, trying to push that next treatment out because no realistic funding. So we're finding a small window, maybe 0.5%, in using multine-based restorative seals on some of our minor routes. And again, our minor routes are not the same as everybody else's. They're still fairly major. I was hoping to do we got a lot of construction joint failures, a lot of these joints between where we're paving. We don't have the coin to fix them, so we're doing this 2-foot wide mill and fill and putting it with micro, and that's from our friends in Illinois. If they can do it, why can't we? And that's kind of on I-70. That's the one that goes through the middle of the state. We're really losing that center line joint, so we don't have the coin to fix it. We're going to go ahead and do this 2-foot wide micro. This is something we tried, is using these aramid fibers. You've got our friends at Fortify next door. They talked to me in 2016. We're putting that in our mixes. Why does it matter? Why is it pavement preservation? Well, I'm putting it down on 2 routes. I think they're listed there. and see how they function. Can I thin that up? Can I take that 1 3/4? Can I take that 2 inch? And can I make it smaller, and will those actually help? 30 has been down 2 years. It's in the city, and the city has no policy for letting people pothole it, so they've been potholing the crap out of it. The city just issues permits all the time, just go ahead and just drill holes in the road. We don't own it. So it's in the city. It's doing fairly well, though. Actually, it's doing real well. And the last one I put in the I-44 South Outer Road, Menards built a distribution center near Sullivan, where all their big trucks come in. We'll see if it plays out. Still in the pavement preservation concept, because we thinned it. We'll see if it works. This last thing is what we talked about in the public meeting a little bit. I'm going to call it hot polymer concrete patching material. You can call it Techcrete, you can call it Fibercrete or Duracrete. That's how I'm using, that's the system I'm using to keep my white pavements white or my gray pavements gray. We have a composite mix in this metro district, ballpark it 35, 65. My joints are going bad because they're at 61.5 and 33 1/3. I use this stuff instead of some DBRs, and I can fix those problems. I can fix my jointing and faulting problems, and I can fix my high steel problems without having to overlay it. P.S. If I don't arrest this, there's no way I can overlay it. I think those joints will still be moving. The bond strength testing, somebody had mentioned that earlier. We did that on 30. That's kind of gives some of our, to the single pass micro concept. We've been testing quite a bit with that. The last thing we'll talk about is the thing I don't want to talk about, is we had a design build safety program. In this, it was $25 million. We'll give you $25 million. You take care of our curves, our highest safety, same concept. We'll give you some money. You guys go fix some curves. So, because we can't address, all these different routes. So the last thing we played with was this HFST, which is a high friction surface treatment and thin overlays on curves, on places that are deadly. And those have gone down. So we have 3 years, going on 3 years of HFST experience. I know that's not pavement preservation, but it's a little bit. And this last project got me a whole bunch more to see what this stuff looks like over time.
Again, getting back to those performance targets, pulled this out of our transportation asset management plan, which Phil's going to touch on tomorrow, but just to give you an idea where we are with interstate pavements, and this is very recent, we're in the high 80s. Our goal, our targets are actually much lower than that. Again, that's due to some financial constraints that the department was forecasting because of all of those other miles of roads we need to take care of. Again, when Federal Highway put these suggested targets out there, we felt like we can meet that very easily currently with our NHS system. Again, it's the other quantity of roads what we need to be addressing. And then on the non-interstate pavement, in a similar way, I think we are, again, holding our own and looking into the future. I think we're going to be okay. And then we measure that with customer satisfaction. We go out and also ask the MoDOT taxpayer what they feel of our system, and that's tracking in a similar fashion to the condition of the NHS roads. Again, that was Phil from St. Louis. We have Chris here from Northwest, and again, I'm Mike from our central office in Jefferson City. When I saw some of the other presentations, I'm going to go through some techniques we use on our lower volumes. It won't take much, but I saw some of those slides that were more project level, and I do have some of those with me.
How is that spray paver working as far as the contractors? Are they bought into it? Are they all on board?
Blair and I talked about it this morning from KDOT. We only have 5 spray paver in the entire state. They are reticent. I think that's the right word to use. They don't want to use it. They don't want to spec it. But because we're having serious challenges with less tracking tack, or trackless tack, wherever you want to call it, I think that's where we are right now. So the first time we have ever done it in the district will be next summer on 141, which runs right in front of our district office, to try this JSP, job special, to tell them we want you to use that. Now that's on a composite pavement, both concrete and asphalt. I don't know, man. Blair, you told me earlier that you have like 25 in your state. I know you're around there somewhere. I think that might be more of the challenge, is that some players feel they don't want to make that $1 million, $1.5 million investment. But I feel I get a lot better victory. I just am really struggling with it. And I worked in asphalt in '99, so I've been on the ground, and the job I did looks great. Well, why? I don't know. I think we just had different tack rates. We had different something. Something's changed. So if I can take that out and put it into a spray paver, I think that removes a lot of the unforeseen errors.
Show some of the projects we're doing, these are more maintenance-related projects on our low-volume roads in Missouri. Touch on some scratch and chip seals, scrub seals, pug mill, double chips, and a research experiment we're doing on ground tire rubber chips. Scratch and chip, that's primarily done in our Northwest District, and again, it's I think we touched on it this morning in our agency meeting, where we take a rutted road on a low-volume road, and these are less than 400 ADT roads, and we fill in those ruts, and then we come back with a chip. Some typical candidates, I'll kind of show you some pics. Again, these are coming from northern Missouri. There's a wheel rut there. So these are typical candidates. I don't know, Chris. I think they're maybe in some better shape than they were back. These pictures are a few years old now, but as with everybody, you have a lot of farming equipment. Harvest time. You've got a lot of you probably have your wind farms. They came in a lot of these rural areas. I mean, they do a number on these roads. Yeah, there's a super load. Look at the super loads coming through. You got the horse and buggies. They're making their way through the roads. Everybody's coming through. Again, what's the reason? Why would we do this? Cost-effective treatment. We do a 1-inch CLC typically that would address those types of roads, but you're looking at least $60,000 a mile, if not higher than that. We need to do something to make those dollars go farther. So that's the reason why you would even consider these things. So really, it's just a process where you fill in the ruts, you top it off, and then you put a chip seal over the top of it. We're talking, it's hard to see what it says there, but it's a 64-22 mix. I think, Chris, we were talking 1/4 inch on the Max Rock there with a 1/4 inch chip seal on top. I think we use a CRS2P oil primarily for our chip seal. Here's an example of one we followed since 2014. You can see how it was going into the winter that year. The following summer, winter of 16, and then I was out there last fall, haven't made it out yet. So that's how it looked a year ago. So they're holding up, and the profile seems to be still pretty good. Again, and here's another example of some other routes using that typical concept. Again, it's cost dollars there. Again, you could do these for a little less than what you could do a 1-inch typical thin overlay. Again, and that's the whole reason why we would consider that. Scrub seals in the Southeast District, that's down south of St. Louis in our Boot Heel area. People I think are here know what a scrub seal is. Our numbers here, we're applying, and this is again with our maintenance operations, we're anywhere from 2/10 to 3/10 CRS2P, follow that with 8 to 12 pounds of man sand, trap sand. Here's an example, some candidates, some block cracking all over. I think we mentioned that this morning in our agency reports, what candidates would look like. That's some typical good candidates that we would consider a scrub seal. And we use a box frame, not so much a trailer. And these are coming back from decades. They were maybe sitting in the windrows, just collecting dust. And we brought them back. We brought this whole concept back about 4 years ago in Missouri. And we drag that box behind the distributor. And we just bring that oil and just with some weighted brooms. We drag the broom through. Some pictures of how we roll it. And then typical application, that's what it looks like in a finished product. Pretty tight. And then we also do some pug mill work in our in the same district, where we make our own cold mix. A lot of these areas, in like many of the rural areas, you can't find hot mix. We have a typical pug mill process. Again, candidate roads, again, we're just trying to add a cold mix overlay of approximately 1 inch to those low volume routes. We're looking for mixes at about $55 a ton, and that's the market rate in these rural areas. And what we were seeing is that we could make this mix using our own staff with our own pug mills for $29, $30 a ton. And typically we got box spreaders behind our trucks. That's one application of putting it down, rolling it, shooting some tack there, dropping it in. Also have some blading operations to put the same product down. Double chip seals, again, we do some of those as well. There's some of the numbers of how we address double chips. Again, with our maintenance crews. 3/8 top or 3/8 bottom chip with a 1/4 inch top. And then I'll touch on a research experiment we're doing with the University of Missouri at Rolla, Missouri Science and Technology. That's now its formal name. We're working with them to what do you do with all these extra tires and the mounds of tires that we're having in the United States, and we worked with their civil engineering as well as their environmental group to try to use this material. So we used we created a test section where we'd use 100% ground tire for the chip, then different combinations, percentages with an Iron Mountain chip, and our emulsion with CRS2P. It was much more expensive than the trap rock initially, but again, this was an experiment to just see how it would work. And I don't know if anyone else has ever tried this, but it's much like just laying chips, but you're laying this ground tire rubber. It comes in about a 1/4 inch ground up chips. There's 100%, that's the control section with 100% trap rock, and then you could see 100% ground tire did not fare as well when it was applied. Then you got your different percentages. What we found, what worked, we thought was really actually worked out well was the 25% ground tire rubber with the 75% Iron Mountain trap. Gave a good appearance, it didn't pick up, and so we're still studying that one. And this is actually a road just south of the university there in Rolla, Missouri. So I just wanted to give an update on some of the maintenance projects, preventative maintenance projects in Missouri. Yes, any questions? No, that was, that we worked with the University of Missouri, Rolla, and it was MoDOT. We put that product down.
The question, if I try and get it, it was lengthy, is how are we dealing with only having 5? And have we had any contractors trying to create a spray paver? Close enough? Yeah. Well, I don't know. My district is very small. It only has 5 counties out of 100 and a lot in the state. I'm not allowing it. So when we go ahead and do this job, they will have to rent it from one of the 5. I don't see anything on the horizon of anybody trying to create a spray paver at this time, sir. But it's an idea. I just haven't seen it. They tried it. It has not worked. We won't use the word trackless tack as it is trademarked. We'll use less tracking tack. With reference to that, well, that wasn't a joke. That's how we really talk, because we're afraid of blackledge. We have tried that the last 4 years. Some of our partners in the emulsion business have tried to develop some kind of a less tracking tack. Unfortunately, we have not had a lot of victory. There's a whole science behind it. I am not very bright. I know a little bit how to follow the discussion points, but it's not worked. This only reason I brought that up is we're trying it, and I thought that you wanted to hear what we were doing different. I will have a lot of, oh my God, that was an error, or I might have a lot of victory, but I won't know until next year. They're going to be pushing against it, but with all due respect, I got to find a better way. Some of the U-bosses I put down, and I have failed in 3 years. Sorry, some of the thins, why? They're peeling up. Why? So that's the reason I bring that up. It might not be a good idea, but I'm going to give it a shot. And if there needs to be more than 5, then there may be more 5 that are purchased. Is that an answer? I thought that was a total politician dodge. I'm getting a yes? I'll give it a...
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.